Yes, thank you everybody for joining. My name is Peyton Midtune. I am the Emergency Management Coordinator here. And I'm currently managing the Florida Disaster Fund application round. So today we are talking about the reviewer training. Thank you all for agreeing to support this. And we're just gonna get started. Thank you. All right, so our objectives today: understanding the grant review process and your role as a reviewer, reviewing the elements of a grant application, and discussing reviewer resources. All right, so the review process for you guys, it's going to start out with reviewing the grants, completing the scoring review sheet for each of the applications, congregating, this will end up with me then, congregating the average score, providing that recommendation back to the foundation, and then we'll notify the awardees. The steps for you all. So the first step is becoming familiar with the Florida Disaster Fund. And that can be done through reviewing the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or the NOFO. You will be receiving an email from either myself or from Allie with the information regarding this reviewer process, and that will include the NOFO. So that will give you more information onto what this grant, the intent of this grant is, what is a qualifying project, what is not a qualifying project, what we are looking for to fund with this grant. The next step will be reviewing and scoring those grant applications. That's where you'll provide your feedback, your insight, your suggestions for the applicant. So you'll take into consideration what they've indicated on their application, and based on the Notice of Funding Opportunity and based on the intent of this grant funding, you'll end up scoring it based on that. And then you'll submit those reviews back to the grant manager, or you'll submit them back to myself. So the general grant review flow, you'll first start out by reading the application. I've already confirmed that the documents have been provided. So you'll go through the application and the budget itself. You'll take your notes and your initial impressions, highlights, and questions. You'll take into consideration whether or not the applicant accurately responded to the prompts posed in the application. You'll want to consider whether the applicant honored the intent outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. You'll want to identify any of the strengths and weaknesses posed in the application. You'll complete the reviewer score sheet, and then you'll submit those scores and the reviewer sheets back to myself. All right, so this is where we're going to get a little bit more in depth into what we should be looking for when it comes to these reviews. So the application itself, it should use concise language and avoid metaphors. It should have sections that logically follow from previous sections. It should avoid any jargon and define any acronyms. It should be free from typos and grammatical errors. It should support all facts that they pose. If the reader should be able to answer the question, how do you know, for any of the questions that they make in the application. The application should answer all questions with detailed responses, and the application should include research and best practices. You will also end up having to review the budget. So when it comes to the budget, the only things that we're really looking for you to review is we want the budget to show reasonable costs and expenses. If you see something where they're estimating the door is $40,000, like a physical door is $40K, that would not be a reasonable cost or expense. You will look for, the budget should show a maximum of 10% for administrative costs. Again, we need to show reasonable use of the funding. The budget should show a match of the budget narrative. So in the application, there is a question devoted to the budget narrative where the applicant should go more in depth into explaining the story of their budget. So we expect that the physical budget that they attach to the application and the budget narrative match. This budget should also show a match requirement. For this grant, there is a 50% match requirement. The Notice of Funding Opportunity does go a little bit more in depth than that. But the budget that they submit should show a match. There is a separate column for that. And then also the budget should, of course, be free from any typos and grammatical errors. So in the email that you will be receiving from either myself or Ally, it will include the reviewer score sheet. The reviewer score sheet goes a little bit more in depth. Most of the specific questions will have an individual line and a score. But generally speaking, the application is broken up into 5 sections: an alignment section, a qualifications and readiness section, a risk management and mitigation section, a budget, and a tracking and reporting section. So those sections will have their own specific point values, but within each section will include specific questions with their own point values. All right, so actually getting into the reviewer score sheet then. This is on the left of the screen is a screenshot of what the reviewer score sheet will look like. You'll receive it in a PDF form. So you'll start up at the top under the applicant organization name, and for your records, you'll want to fill out that field. These forms can either be printed out and completed by hand or completed through the PDF, whichever you're more comfortable with. But if you can include the applicant organization name at that top, just so that if there is an issue with the file, we can see based on the actual document, which applicant you're reviewing. That first question, the proposal was complete and included a cover page with all required documents listed in the funding proposal. You can either select yes or leave it blank. I've already confirmed with all of these grants that all of their documents were submitted, so you can move straight into the point-based score questions. Again, they are split up into sections, and the application itself is split up into the same sections. So it'll be easy to match the questions posed in the reviewer score sheet with the questions posed in the actual application. Each section will have those specific questions to consider when you're scoring. So in total, the alignment section is worth 20 points, but as you can tell, there are 4 questions valued at 5 points each, which help get to that 20-point maximum. So you can award anywhere between 1 to 5 points, depending on this, depending on how they answer the question. Next slide. Thank you. So for each of these reviewer score sheets, you will want to carefully review each question and evaluate the applicant's response. For every question listed on that reviewer score sheet is the corresponding or similar question on the application form. Applicants should indicate their Applicants should indicate their chosen score by circling or highlighting on the reviewer score sheet. So as you're going through this form, depending on if you're filling it out by hand or filling it out through Adobe, you can either circle, highlight, just something to indicate what number score you're giving each of those questions. As you can tell, next to that score column is a comments column, and in that field, you can include any kind of comments that you want to indicate. I do recommend that if you're scoring somebody fairly low, to include some kind of comment to indicate why you're scoring something so low. The second page of the reviewer score sheet is a general comments field. So in that field, you can include any general comments related to the application itself. If it's something you recommend moving forward with, if it's something that for some reason you feel like needs to have some edits made before it can be granted out, any kind of formal recommendations or comments related to that. And then we will ask for you to sign and date the reviewer score sheet for each one that you've completed, and then you can get them sent over, which is right there. So when you have completed those reviewer score sheets, that is the file template name that we would like for you to identify them as. I will also include that file template name in the email as well as in a helpful guide. But once you've completed all of those reviewer score sheets, you can email them back to myself and I can get them logged. So some special considerations for reviewing these applications. When you are reviewing the application itself, take into consideration what the budget should look like, take into consideration what the budget looks like in comparison to the application itself. If the application says they plan on doing a rebuilding event, and then somehow on the budget, they're doing something entirely separate, that is something that can take into consideration when it comes to scoring. This is a cost reimbursement grant, and organizations must have revenue streams available to upfront most of these costs, and this can be expressed through match. You will take that, or you will see that in the budget. They will indicate somehow, either in the budget or the budget narrative, how they expect to meet their match. And there should be some indication that it's going to come from either their own internal organization funding or that they're receiving separate funding that they're eligible to use as match. Volunteer Florida funding should not be the only funding source for these organizations. Many of these applicants have received separate Volunteer Florida or Volunteer Florida Foundation funds in the past. They cannot use Volunteer Florida funding to meet their match requirements. So if they indicate that on their budget or on their budget narrative, that is something that would need to be noted. Lastly, this is not a capacity building grant, nor is it a formal mitigation grant. This application should be focused on recovery work specific to Helene and or Milton, depending on the type of application that they've submitted. When you receive an application, there is a field specifically asking which event they are requesting funding for, whether it is a Helene, a Milton, or a combined. So it should be specific to the work related to the event that they are applying for. All right, so lastly, these are your reviewer tools. Like I said, you will be receiving an email either from myself or from Allie with these documents attached to it, as well as some helpful information. So it will include the reviewer tool, a conflict of interest form, your reviewer score sheet, some reviewer instructions, the grant info, and that includes this slide deck, so you'll receive that as well. And then once we get to the stage where we are ready for you guys to start reviewing, which will hopefully be Wednesday or Thursday of this week, you'll receive a separate email with the PDF copies of the applications and budgets. So then you can start working on those as soon as you get them. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi there, this is Commissioner Chavez. I know we're gonna get the slide deck. Any way to get the recording of this presentation?
Yes, absolutely. We'll get that over.
Perfect, thank you.
Did you say when we want them submitted?
That is thank you. For submissions, so we hope to get them to you by either tomorrow, Wednesday, or early Thursday. We're hoping to get them back from you by the 13th. I know that is a slightly quick turnaround, but we want to keep the timeline moving as quick as possible. So if we can get them returned by the 13th, it will look like each of you should be receiving about 12 applications to review.
When are the awards?
They should be what time?
We do it. We're going to do a board meeting to finalize the slate, and that'll be on the 14th, and then the announcement will be made the next week.
Okay.
Contract dates run from December 1st through November 30th. So it is a 1-year contract. And then if there is any conflict with any of the applications that you are assigned, we will be able to switch that around. So just let Peyton know if that does occur.
Yeah, and that is included also in the helpful sheets as well as the conflict of interest form. If you do have any conflicts with any of the applicants that you're set to review, just email me back and we can get them switched around.
Maybe I missed this. This is Kathy Aguirre. So each of us will get about 12. Are we receiving different applications, or are we all receiving and scoring the same? I'm sorry if I missed that.
You're fine. So there are 24 applicants total. Based on the number of reviewers that we require for each application, it results in about 12 per person.
So no, not
Okay.
everybody's getting the same one.
Right.
We only require 3
Okay.
scores for each for each application.
Great, thank you.
And if you guys don't mind, I'd like to point out, please don't forget that your scoring sheets and your scoring notes are public record. So please keep that in mind as you make them. I appreciate that we do want to have you make notes of what you're doing, but please keep that in mind as you go through the process.
Understood, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any other questions?
And as we go on, if you don't have any questions at this moment, Peyton is available. I'm available. We can address additional questions as you leave this and think of other things, or as you begin the application process, the review process. We are both available to answer any of those questions that you may have.
Yes, and in the email either sent from myself or Ally, it will include our contact information if you have questions to reach out to us directly.
It's not as hard as it sounds.
No,
It sounds kind of complicated, but it's really, really not.
No.
It'll make sense once you get it all in front of you and
Yeah, the first one might be a little bit tedious to do, but once you get one down, it is pretty easy to
Yeah.
continue through them all. Once you start to see a lot of the same language being used throughout the applications, it's easy to follow through, go from application to application.
One question that we often have from reviewers is just, they're curious on what it looks like to review an application, and we just say, be consistent throughout. That is, why we do this, combined scoring. So as long as you review all of yours in the same manner, it'll be fine as we combine those scores and average them out at the end of it. So again, like Erin said, it is very easy. It is reading an application, learning about a project, and then just scoring based on that rubric.
Awesome. If we do not have any questions, thank you all for joining us and really truly thank you for supporting this process. This is a last stitch effort for a lot of these organizations to receive funding when it comes to these events. So we definitely want to make sure that we're giving their applications a shot. So thank you all for joining. And like I said, be on the lookout for an email either from myself or from Ally with all of the information today, as well as all of the helpful guides. And then we can move forward with getting the applications out to you once we've completed the initial review.
Thank you for all the work that you all are doing, and it's honored, I've been honored to be on this in this group here to assist. I know how important it is, but thank you for the work you all are doing behind the scenes as well.
thanks so much. Appreciate it. Everybody have a good day.
You too, thanks.
Thank you.